Tonight we're going to discuss nationalism and the nationalism that colonies developed that led to decolonization. And also, as you can see in the objective, how World War II played a role in decolonization. So treaties to end World War II, there were several, but the first divided Germany, and if you take a look at this map, Germany was divided into four. So there was a French occupied zone, a US occupied zone, a British occupied zone, and a Soviet occupied zone. And then there's a pullout map because Berlin was also divided into those same four sections, and it lied in the Soviet Union occupied zone. This will become very important when we talk about the Cold War. So one of the first treaties to end World War II is the Yalta Conference in February 1945. And you see here all the way to the left is Winston Churchill. In the middle is Roosevelt. And on the right is Stalin. So pay attention to Roosevelt. He is going to grow old. He has polio. And so he's going to get very sick in the next 4 years. So I want you to have an image of what he looked like in 1945. So the Yalta Conference was the one that divided Germany into those four zones. So the US would occupy a zone with their military, the Soviets, Britain, and France would all occupy a zone. The Soviets originally wanted to occupy all of Germany because they had taken control of the rest of Eastern Europe. So the Soviets want control over small states in Eastern Europe, and the West wants those states to be free and democratic. They're afraid that more and more of Europe is going to fall to communism. So the agreement is that Germany would be. The next conference is Potsdam. And you can see here we have our small child, our baby. And that's humanity. It seems quite helpless in the name of this doctor who has the atom bomb and can decide life or death. And so the idea is that the invention of the atomic bomb drastically changes global conflicts and how they are resolved. And so this is the Potsdam Conference, is the next one. And at the Potsdam Conference, Germany and Austria are divided and occupied. Japan becomes occupied by the US. And Asian colonies are returned to their former European rulers, Vietnam to France, etc. Korea is also divided in two. The Soviets are going to take the north part of Korea, and the US is going to take a south. This is foreshadowing. It's very important and will lead to key events in the Cold War and the Korean War. China is going to get its lost territory back. And again, Mao has not yet risen to power. So this is the time where we have battles between the nationalists, the Kuomintang, and the communists, Mao's army. And there are colonies in the Middle East, Africa, and India, all demanding change because of their roles in World War II. They played an instrumental role in providing resources and soldiers, and now our colonies are seeing the weakness of the mother countries. They're seeing that they can't always resolve all their conflicts, and they are sort of babies themselves. So our colonies start to resist colonization and demand change. The United Nations is formed. So this is the UN. And the purpose of the United Nations, it's sort of an extension of the League of Nations, but it's meant to actually be effective. And the goal is to mediate and intervene in international disputes. So rather than having two countries go at it, you have an international, unbiased observer organization made up of multiple countries that will resolve international disputes. And the UN is more effective, but not 100% effective, because it has more power than the League of Nations. And it's more representative of world population. It has strong countries, weak countries, more countries involved. And the US joins. And the permanent headquarters for the UN is still today in New York City. Lastly, we have causes for decolonization. And here, and our four causes of decolonization is Nazi and Japanese conquests, demonstrated the weakness of colonial powers. Europeans started to look weak because the Nazis and the Japanese were able to conquer them. In Asia, the Japanese were being very harsh to the Chinese that they had colonized, and this strengthened China's desire for independence. Also, total war drained the resources of European powers. Europe had to put all of its resources towards World War II, and therefore it could not control its colonies as easily. And lastly, you have the US and the Soviets fighting out against colonialism as it's wrong. And so we have some world leaders telling European powers that colonialism is not okay.